Hi, this is author philosopher Ronald E. Springer from ethicsunderground.com. Welcome to Chapter 3, Part 5 of the reading of Moral Armor, Our Social Challenge. It has been time for another tea party for decades, yet one hasn't come. While our society is advanced, twice now in history men have been freer and more morally wise on average, during the golden age of Athens and America during the 1800s, when our productive atmosphere was positively euphoric. But since then, our ancestors have allowed the moral degenerates of altruist slave states to infect us with guilt about our prosperity through their inverted moral code. Such guilt is atonable only through the loss of our products and our money, the tools of civility, the loss of our peace of mind and respect for others, and the loss of control over that which we've created. Their code tells us that the highest moral action is to give up everything we hold sacred. The Cold War may be over, but its beast is not dead. It lies dormant, preserved and nurtured by a fatal philosophic mixture. This veiled primitive psychology is responsible for our tolerance of living as 50% slave without revolt, as we do now in America. Successful men haughtily shrug off any forewarnings in the midst of their own prosperity, never considering it necessary to examine the true source of their wealth. They're ahead of the game, right? Well, the train is coming in many different ways, and our best have always stood on the tracks. Without moral grounding, they'll get creamed in a heartbeat when crisis does strike. The good doesn't always win, as Athens lost to Sparta. When a civil state faces a military state, a war's outcome favors those who like to fight and who know the dance. The living generators are fighters too. They don't pretend that an opposition does not exist, and they are not willing to live at anyone's mercy. We must come to understand how to protect the source of our values, human cognition, and to know in advance when it is threatened. The living generators know who their enemies are, as well as their peers. The two types of men, the self-made and the fear-driven, tend to act consonant with their inner motivation in all things. We will come to understand them and see their actions extrapolated into all the realms of man: relationships, art, institutions, and politics. We, with eyes that can see, minds that can judge, and bodies that can act, will learn what is forgivable and what isn't, and to know the gravity of misgivings against a rational course of action at any level, personal, industrial, or national. The direction of a society is determined by what its active individuals believe serve their benefit. In our lives, immorality should be reduced to its rightful identity, just a natural form of sediment. Like kelp on the ocean's surface, we can predict encountering it and design appropriate intellectual protection. It is going to snag you from time to time, but it is no longer going to stop you. Proper moral armor is like a boat, a well-engineered outer shell to deal with this natural environment, while the softer, shock-absorbing cushions carry the passengers in comfort. If you have ever fallen while water skiing, you know it feels like concrete. Imagine such continuous exposure, and then appreciate how purposeful and long-lasting the hull of a boat is. Man designed it to withstand the elements and achieve objectives that he could not withstand or accomplish with his own body. Our products are extensions of ourselves. Man answered this problem of existence brilliantly and continues to improve his answers as the sum of his knowledge grows in all things. His spiritual development deserves the same allegiance, aiming to blast through the sediment with a throttle pinned, on his way to his chosen goals. With seasoning, we'll be capable of using this technology to step again into forbidden realms, to prevent harm, to remove inefficiencies, and to redirect outcomes in every little way that counts, in our lives and in its extrapolation to world events. Then, when we seek to change things, it can be done simply, quickly, and without violence. If the intellectual range of the top 1% on Earth is taken to a new plane, the rest will follow without question. These 40 million people do not start with the Forbes 400 and descend from there. They are not measured by the virtue of sound financial accumulation alone, but by the combination of metaphysical honesty and productive efficacy. They use their bodies and their minds for the purpose nature intended. They are the most human of the humans, the living generators, the self-made men who intend to remain self-made. They understand that life is an act of constant replenishing in body and mind, and they don't use their advantages to secure a parasitical means of sustenance for themselves. Nothing can exclude you from being counted among the prominent of mankind if this is the path you choose. not wealth, degrees, positions, connections, citizenship, or family name. It is a state of existence attainable by anyone who decides to pursue it. No one can stop you, and its rewards are beyond expropriation. The pursuit and its fulfillment are not primarily social, but are primarily between you and existence itself. As all great men do, we can develop ourselves to our own highest potency in every aspect of our existence that we care enough about living to remain conscious of. If you are honest, you can advance at an exhilarating pace, but socially, reforms struggle at the pace of an aggregate honesty. The American Revolution took 156 years from our landing at Plymouth Rock, 1620, to our liberation, 1776, and you can bet many of our lethargic inhabitants were opposed to thought, to freedom, to life, and to civility, even under British oppression. And today's world is no different. Most of the populace lives in a state of panic, of emotional arrest, not knowing whether they are on track or whether they are wasting their lives, fearful to discover the truth either way. They live without certainty, without purpose, and without joy. They think and make decisions as if every choice is life or death, where death always seems to have an advantage, and they bring into existence all of the impotence and misery that they themselves feel. Forget them and concentrate on expanding your own freedom and refinement. As moral leaders, we can build a better world with the most effective means, simply leading by example. This book was designed for the self-made anyway, not for the slothful, the pretentious, or the all-yielding. It is for the efforting, the honest, and the successful, the way above average. It is for the morally invigorated, to help make their consciousness more integrated and their moral understanding more potent, to make their hides thick and their spirit high. Many of you have been in a cycle of consistent development throughout life, or you never would have picked it up. For the rest of you, look in the bottom drawer. No, the shoebox in the back of the closet. Okay, open it. See that? That's your brain. Hose it off, put it back in, and let's get going. Chapters 4 and 8 are comprised of a new moral philosophical technology. As the most abstract, they are the most difficult, so take your time. All moral action rests on them. If you're still foggy at the book's conclusion, read it again. Or listen again. I've read certain books over 50 times as new experience clarifies their lessons. Moral Armor is a synthesis of 2,500 years of philosophy. The bold headings address specific attributes of man, making skimming and future reference a breeze. We use lights constantly, so should we reference their source. There will be a sense of familiarity to just about everything I'll name. Without knowing the content, you will still feel as if you have known, and here's why. It is the structure that is familiar, because all useful knowledge has come to you in the same format. You'll be able to sense my respect for human beings through advanced consonants with our proper means of comprehension. Now, it will be deeper, more explicit, and more precise than it ever has been. You'll find yourself settling into the warm flow of logic, confirming for yourself that each step taken is in the right direction. As you gain full cognitive responsibility for your own motivations, you'll begin to notice the difference between an emotional tantrum and a rational conviction whenever you encounter an idea you are uncomfortable with. You will come to understand how your elders have been operating, and you will move past them. You will come to see that there is no value in maintaining their incomplete or irrational assumptions, knowing that the protection of the wrong ideas is a threat to your quality of life. You will begin to find safety and opportunity in the act of embracing the right ideas and in the pleasurable act of discovering them. The old consequences from defying reality, which left you stranded with a shameful anger and a desire for emotional deadness, will become senselessly immature, clearly the wrong path. There is no escape from existence, and any struggle to will become too painful to bear. Evasion will become so suffocating that your immediate reaction to it will be to stand up straight, look openly at what is, and breathe in the pure, fresh air of your proud moral choice, to face the world openly as a heroic being must. Eventually, you will come to look at truth as the life-fostering blessings they are, and at your willingness to stand by them as the romantic transformation in your character that it is. You will become a scholar in your own right, as the great scientists were, calmly observing nature as it is, independent of what you might have hoped it to be. With the indestructible spirit of a living generator, you'll be one of us, and more so with every sunrise and every new connection. Openly dedicated to clarification, you'll employ new knowledge in order to live well, maintaining a pleasant state of fulfillment. Moral armor, like its spiritual predecessors, is a treasure map, and it leads to Atlantis. There are wonderful things to understand and wonderful emotional states to experience once one has understood. We would all like to change the world, and we can, but it must start with ourselves, and this is the road. To lift darkness off the earth, one must first lift it from one's own brow. As American law was designed to protect the producers of the nation by protecting the productive capacity of a man, to protect his life from violence and to guard the ownership of his creations, I want to see our society refined so that it protects a man's spirit as well as it protects his body. Our elders down through the centuries should have loved us more than to allow what has happened to happen. The moral sanction of evil by the generators of life is up. Now it's our turn. Still, the war will continue on many fronts, so be prepared for opposition. Due to morality's subversion, as a public office holder, if you intend to uphold the tenets of the Constitution and pursue the endeavor with clear reasoning, you're considered a traitor. If you pursue scientific discoveries that clash with present views, you're considered crazy. If you disagree with degenerative cultural trends and seek to better human lives, you're considered behind the times. If you vent fresh ideas on the subject of morality, you're called insane. Mindless hordes will always try to batter us, but now the side of the good has a philosophical avenger. In such an atmosphere, it is honesty and justice that are considered controversial. So be it. The evil have always made the honest, able, and striving individuals pay for achieving in body and spirit what they betrayed. Now, they will witness us reaching critical mass, the radiant pride earned for accepting and practicing without apology a moral code defined by rational standards. Unless we realize and accept that the premises we have suffered under for years do not come from God, but from men interpreting what the writers interpreted, what the disciples interpreted, what Jesus interpreted was the message of God, as on any other grapevine, we are better off validating all moral premises for ourselves. As morality begins with the nature of cognition, and cognition is an attribute of the individual, if you cling to the Bible and push its teachings after spending any serious time on this planet, you probably are crazy, which leads to the next point. Warrior note: no valid morality begins with an external frame of reference. Every man is the owner of his own mind, and if he must reference an outside source in order to find out what he thinks, he has sacrificed the moral power of his life. Morality is meant for our protection, and with the proper foundation, as in all other civilized undertakings, our control grows with time, in scope and precision. The question of what fosters or destroys a human life is a mature concept linked to fact, and is not subject to wishy-washy interpretation. Pursuing endeavors which provide the greatest self-impact while respecting the rights of others is by far the most moral course any individual can follow. The greatest passion to be drawn from an individual is to be elicited by the individual. Such long days and late nights produced the light bulb, the phonograph, and the personal computer. They've produced great works of art, beautiful buildings, and priceless literature. Such days and nights produced the defense and exaltation for this living pattern, which you now hold. It is time for the premises of death to yield to the greater power, life and its immaculate patterns. The ominous evil you sense at times is just a midget behind a curtain, projecting a huge shadow, that's all. The good must regain control of this world. Take it back. Don't assume your elders know what they're doing. They don't. Don't make the emotional conclusion that evil has metaphysical power and that there's a natural bias towards it. There isn't. Evil gains its power only through the life force that is willing to serve it, and you have a choice in the matter. We are not tied. We are not forced into silent passivity or driven unalterably towards a future that takes from us our freedoms. If you're not treated professionally in a job, you can quit. If you're not treated fairly in a relationship, you can end it. If you're not treated appropriately in a store, you can walk out. If you're not treated civilly by a governing body, you can step away from society and create a voice for reform. We are as free as the risks and responsibilities we are willing to assume. If you're going to be an outsider, be a good one. And know that you're not alone. Show the world that you are alive. Show them your motives and let theirs be seen. Let's see if the soulless can handle practicing their evils out in the open. Make no mistake, My mission is to restore moral potency in the minds of individual men, the best, to give them not just a semblance of control over their lives, but total authority. As compensation, I want to see looking back at me not a defiant tension, but a free sense of ease and a recaptured innocence, the healthy, vibrant confidence of eyes that know what they're winning. Thanks so much for listening. That's the end of Chapter 3. Join me for Chapter 4 coming up next. Thank you very much. This is author, philosopher Ronald D. Springer of EthicsUnderground.com, signing off.